Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our luncheon speech will begin. Today we have our luncheon speech presented by the Honorable Andrus Ansip, former Prime Minister of the Republic of Estonia and member of the European Parliament. To begin, please first welcome Deputy Minister of the Foreign Affairs of the Republic of China, Taiwan, Dr. Roy Chong Lee, to introduce our speaker. Welcome.
Oh, thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed the morning session, the food that we have prepared for you, and also I want to get you ready to enjoy the keynote speech by the Honorable Andrus Ansip. It's been my privilege to introduce Honorable Ansip to you as our, let me just hold this, as our keynote speaker for this luncheon. Honorable Mr. Ansip is currently a member of the European Parliament, and he was the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Estonia between the year 2005 and year 2014. And that makes him one of the longest serving elected political leader in European Union. In his 9 years of prime ministership, he has transformed Estonia to become a thriving digital society that until today are recognized and considered as one of the best examples of how a small country can harness the power of technology to continue not only economic growth, but also to promote social and regional inclusiveness. Prime Minister Ansip, during his tenure as the Prime Minister of Estonia, under his leadership, he continued the efforts on transforming Estonia's public service into what we understand today as the e-Estonia. Many of the digital services, public services offered by the government. Now, last night I was thinking, well, all this looks quite normal nowadays, right? Everybody got digital signatures. Everybody have a digital ministry, including Taiwan, to promote digital government. But let's recall this. All these efforts under Prime Minister Ansip's leadership took place before even iPhone is available. The first iPhone went into market in the second half of the year 2008. And all the efforts that Estonia, under Prime Minister Ansip's leadership, took place several years before that. We can't imagine our life before iPhone. I was trying last night very hard, but I can't remember anything about that. I can't now live without iPhone. But that is the time when Estonia take this leadership in transforming the government into an e-government, e-based government. That is the time when people are still preferring to read everything on a paper-based document. You need to see the real stamp on your documents. You need to vote in person, and everything is paper-based. And Estonia is already taking the leadership to transform its public sector into a digital base. And many of the practices until today are still considered as one of the best practices, especially for developing countries to follow suit. And for that, I really want to underscore Prime Minister Ansip's contribution. The benefits of his efforts went beyond just Estonia. It created benefits not only for European Union, but also for Taiwan and other countries in the world. I think one of the inspirations for Taiwan to create the digital ministry came from the achievements that Estonia has been able to share with us in the last 20 years, during which Prime Minister Ansip spent 9 years to continue all these great efforts. Now, move on from serving as the statesman of Estonia, Prime Minister Ansip was appointed as the Vice President of the EU Commission, and unsurprisingly, as the Commission of the Digital Single Market. In those new EU-level capacities, he continued to promote the awareness and development of digital transformation, harmonizing regulations and also remove other obstacles, but at the same time creating new rules and regulations that underpins a secured and a digital marketplace that consumer and business can do business with confidence. And now, as a member of the European Parliament, he is the vice chair of the Committee on Internal Market and also Consumer Protection. He also participates in the Committee on Innovation, Research and Energy. And also many of the intergroup delegations working on important issues such as artificial intelligence, not intellectual property. Probably he will be elaborating on that. Artificial intelligence, digital transformations, and also promoting the EU partnership with the Pan-African Parliamentary Group. So ladies and gentlemen, with this, please join me to welcome the Honorable Andrus Ansip to take the podium. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Deputy Minister Lee, for the introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, please once again welcome former Prime Minister Ansip to come up stage and deliver his speech. Welcome.
Ni hao. Honorable Deputy Minister Dr. Roy Chun Lee, Honorable Chairman Tan Sun Chen, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this honorable dialogue and for your kind words introducing me. I'm indeed former this and that, but now I'm just a citizen of Europe who has been elected to the European Parliament, just one among 705 members. And of course, I'm not here as a Prime Minister or Vice President of the European Commission because I'm neither this nor that. Today, I want to share with you how my understanding of what is happening in the world has changed over time. Nowadays, whatever the official title of the conversation, people in Europe always talk about Ukraine. They talk about their security, but they also talk about the People's Republic of China and Taiwan. War has changed everything, and war has also changed the understanding of Taiwan for many people like myself. Small Estonia decided to follow one China policy in 1994. It was a pragmatic and self-centered decision. We could not afford a confrontation with two UN Security Council permanent members. Russia was unpredictable and dangerous for us even then, whereas Beijing declared that they respect the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and inviolability of borders of all countries, regardless of whether they are large or small. We believed their statements. The war in Ukraine has brought to the consciousness of many Estonians, but also other Europeans, how Beijing actually interprets its statements. China is claiming neutrality in this conflict, but is actually pro-Russian in its neutrality. China has not condemned Russia and has not withdrawn from their joint statement on no limits cooperation signed just before the start of the full-scale war. It has also accused NATO and countries that have provided support to Ukraine as warmongers. All this has made Europeans think deeply about Taiwan. European Union is the largest foreign investor in Taiwan, with more than a quarter of all foreign investment, with an investment stock of over $50.1 billion US. Taiwan and the EU are also important trading partners. Our bilateral trade is flourishing, reaching over 73 billion years in combined goods and services. The EU is Taiwan's fourth trading partner. In the European Union, all investments and all traders were treated equally. One could even say unpolitically. Everyone was welcome to the European Union market. Over time, Europeans began to understand that on our side, we allow anyone who wants to come to our liberal market without restrictions. But our entrepreneurs do not have such easy access when it comes to the market of the People's Republic of China. The People's Republic of China claimed that since they are a developing country, it is essential for them to protect their market. Thus, European companies were required to either establish a joint venture with a Chinese company, which also meant opening up their technological secrets, or simply to open up their technological secrets as a prerequisite for operating. The formal and informal restrictions to European companies, despite repeated promises to level the playing field, and the use of theft of intellectual property as a business model only added to the fact that finally, even in Europe, reciprocity and investment screening began to be topical for us as an issue. In December 2018, at an ordinary press conference of the European Commission, a journalist asked me if Europeans should be concerned about Huawei. I replied, of course, we should be concerned. I referred to the 2017 intelligence law in China, which states clearly that all companies, regardless of whether they deal with hardware or software, must cooperate with Chinese security agencies and, what's more, not keep this cooperation secret. My statement was followed by a sharp reaction from both the Chinese embassy and Huawei, to be noted exactly in this order. The ambassador who visited my office claimed firmly that Huawei would not spy on Europeans. I said, not without some sarcasm, that I would still prefer to work with those who respect their domestic laws and are not ready to give them up as soon as it's no longer economically beneficial. Several European telecom operators were initially quick to confirm that they trust Huawei completely. But this was not the case for their customers and shareholders, and it led to the operators beginning to change their positions. National security issues in the European Union are the responsibility of member states and have not been given to the European Union's joint competence. But if a member state asks the European Commission to develop a common position, the Commission will certainly deliver. And member states asked for a joint position on Huawei and ZTE issues. This was natural because several capitals had come under strong pressure from Beijing. We agreed on a three-step approach. First, a risk assessment on the level of member states, then a risk assessment on the level of entire European Union, and finally, necessary mitigation measures, restrictions, and bans. And it worked. We were able to provide a European solution to problems that all member states were facing individually. This has now brought us to a situation where, at least in Northern Europe, all countries have firmly excluded Huawei or other Chinese vendors from building their 5G networks. The tensions around Huawei, in addition to the lack of reciprocity in relations with China, caused frustrations among Europeans. With the addition of pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong, human rights violations in Xinjiang, and the pandemic, Europeans became also more aware and seriously disturbed by disinformation and cyber attacks coming from China. Many people started to realize that China is a multifaceted information manipulation actor with a rich arsenal. Several takedowns of disinformation networks on global social media platforms were soon attributed to Chinese states. It also became very clear that Chinese information manipulation goes beyond just promoting a message. They also suppress voices and sources that would undermine China's official narrative, including by intimidating and harassing individuals inside the European Union. And these activities don't happen in isolation. They can be connected to other forms of interference, including cyber attacks or economic coercion. Microsoft announced on 11th of July this year that it had mitigated an attack by a China-based threat actor, Storm 0558, which targeted primarily government agencies in Western Europe and focuses on espionage, data theft, and credential access. This news was at the same time reassuring, but also seriously disturbing for Europeans. It is unfortunate that cyber attackers can improve their methods with every attack. But unfortunately, those who are under attacks do not share information with each other and therefore have to deal with the attack alone. I very much hope that Europe and Taiwan, together with other like-minded partners, will further intensify cooperation in the field of cybersecurity to make us all stronger. The full-scale war in Ukraine has forced European countries to pay more attention to cybersecurity and disinformation. War and the COVID-19 crisis have also made us think more about technological sovereignty. After the Second World War, it was decided to merge the economies of Germany and France. It was believed that if countries were heavily dependent on each other, there would be no tensions leading to war between them. There is a single internal market in Europe, economies are united, and there are no tensions that could lead to war between the member states. It was therefore natural to assume that if the merger of economy had a tension-relieving effect between the EU member states, then one could expect similar success from mutual dependence between Russia and the European Union. Unfortunately, the belief that Russia needs money from Europe as much as Europe needed Russian gas proved naive. Europe became dependent on Russian gas, but the money received from Europe did not change Russia's behavior. Neither did most of the money reach ordinary citizens in Russia. Instead, the bulk of it went to corrupt officials and businesses. We also know that the accumulated gas and oil revenues are now used by Russian war machine to kill innocent people in Ukraine. Instead of the hoped-for mutual dependence, Europe had fallen into one-sided dependence on Russian gas. We used last year to get rid of this dependency at considerable costs, but successfully. Of course, we should have done it faster. Unfortunately, there were no conclusions drawn from that in 2008 when Russia attacked Georgia, or in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea. After the annexation of Crimea, the European Union's gas dependence on Russia actually doubled. The seriousness of the situation only reached Europeans with a full-blown war unleashed against Ukraine. The understanding that any deep one-sided dependence on someone is very dangerous also reached every citizen. The realization that Europe has become too dependent on strategic raw materials from the People's Republic of China led to the Critical Raw Materials Act in the European Union, put forward by the European Commission this May. I still remember when there were rare earth metal production plants in the West. The People's Republic of China was very determined over the years to buy them up and transfer the production to China. Where factories were closed, people applauded because this industry was heavily polluting. By now, the production of rare earth metals has been concentrated in the People's Republic of China. There are only a few factories producing rare earth metals outside of China, and one of them is located in Estonia. Critical raw materials cover much more than just rare earth metals. Critical raw materials are crucial inputs for our industries. Without secure access to them, we cannot deliver on the green and digital transition and cannot ensure our security. Global shift towards renewable energy and digitalization of our economies and societies rapidly increases demand for critical raw materials in the coming decades. Demand for the lithium used to manufacture batteries, for example, is expected to increase of up to 57-fold by 2050. The need for niobium used in the production of electric cars and wind turbines is also growing sharply. Niobium is mainly produced in Brazil, with the most of the production going to China. However, 20% of the global niobium production is done in Estonia, and this niobium goes primarily to America. Our proposal for the Critical Raw Materials Act includes several actions to reduce our massive dependencies and increase the production along the critical raw materials value chain. First, we set our benchmarks. By 2030, EU's extraction capacity should cover 10% of EU's consumption. Processing capacity should cover 40%, and recycling capacity covers 15% of the EU's consumption. No more than 65% of EU consumption of each strategic raw material should come from a single third country. China's recent statements about setting significant restrictions on the sale of gallium and germanium only reinforces the European Union's desire to achieve strategic autonomy in the production of critical raw materials. This will, of course, be done together with our like-minded democratic partners from across the world. We aim to do the same with the European Chips Act. While in cooperation with Taiwan, the EU's goal is to double and upgrade its chips production. Taiwanese investments into European chip industry are warmly welcomed. The war and the crisis have made Europeans think not only about strategic economy, but also about solidarity. I believe that many of us only now began to understand Taiwan's situation. The Russian attack on Ukraine has brought Taiwan into the hearts of many people. I regret that in my previous position, I have not made enough effort to strengthen my country's economic relations with Taiwan. I regret that we have not made enough effort to develop cultural ties and cooperation in the medical field, that we have not tried to strengthen our people-to-people relations and develop tourism. As digital pioneers, Estonia and Taiwan would be natural partners in digital cooperation. Estonia's economy has grown very rapidly. We have a functioning democracy with an efficient e-government. Estonia is sharing the same fate as Taiwan, being a beacon of democracy and freedom that borders a dangerous big neighbor. Estonia is facing cyber attacks and disinformation from Russia. We deal with them by focusing on a very strong public-private cooperation in building a secure cyber ecosystem. And we are grateful that the Estonian media is one of the world's most freest medias, as that helps us to deal with the disinformation campaigns. Something that also Taiwan, with vibrant media and civil society, has a lot of experience with. I'm grateful that we received the first reliable information about COVID-19 from Taiwan. I strongly support granting observer status to Taiwan in the World Health Organization. Taiwan's economy is flourishing. Taiwan refutes the claims of authoritarian regimes that democracy and free market economy are not suitable for Asian or Russian people. I admire Taiwan and your free people. Although war and crisis have made Europeans think about strategic autonomy in several areas, about reducing dependencies on authoritarian actors who might use these dependencies for political purposes. This does not have to mean isolationism, protectionism, or the end of liberal trade. To the contrary, we must balance these trends with even closer cooperation between democracies wherever they might be located on the globe. When Estonia regained independence after 50 years of occupation, our goal was never to be alone again. We are not alone. No democracy should be left alone. We must stick together to stand up to aggression or to those threatening with aggression. We must all be with Taiwan. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to take your questions if we have time for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. Do you want to take questions?
Q&A?
Do you want to Q&A? Okay. Yes, maybe. A short Q&A session? Yes, we have one question in the front.
Weronika Jakubczak, Fire Academy, Poland. I would like to thank you so much for spending so much time addressing the concept of strategic autonomy and the importance of Taiwan. And I hope that that will be further explored, not only by the European Union, but also other democracies. We really should stand up together and use our economic power and potential to really influence the policy to the benefit of democracy. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for your kind words. As I said, we learned a lesson. So Russia initiated an energy crisis in Europe. We had to pay quite high price to get out from this situation, and now we don't repeat this quite costly lesson. We don't like those one-sided dependencies from authoritarian regimes, and this is also somehow like prevention, and we have to act together with like-minded countries. Our plans in the European Union, when talking about Critical Raw Materials Act or CHIPS Act, they are not talking just about European companies, but those documents are targeting all the like-minded countries around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions in the audience? Please raise your hand. Okay, we have one.
Those were wonderful remarks. Thank you very much. Could you elaborate a little more on the effective techniques for dealing with and defending against misinformation and disinformation? You alluded to the value of the open press and public-private cooperation. We'd love to hear a little more.
Well, thank you very much for this question. As maybe some people know, Estonia was under quite heavy cyber attacks, DDoS attacks in the year 2007, when we replaced a war monument from the city center to the cemetery. And at that time, maybe it was first time in the world when the whole government, the whole country was under cyber attacks. And at that time, we were able to deal with those cyber attacks just because of a really good informal cooperation between different national CERTs, computer emergency response teams. Many of those attacks were not able to cross even our borders. They were caught before they crossed our borders. But during that crisis, which was also initiated by Kremlin, so people working in IT sector in Estonia, but IT sector, it was said many times today, is quite developed in Estonia. People from private sector wanted to act as patriots of Estonia. They provided their assistance to deal with those cyber attacks and disinformation. So governments are not able to hire those people who are working in IT sector, in the private sector, but they acted as patriots. And so we can say there was also really good informal cooperation between private sector and public sector in Estonia at that time. Then about the disinformation. I think free media is the most powerful weapon against disinformation. I don't think we have to create some kind of ministers of truth in our countries. It's free media who is able to deal with disinformation. And I'm happy to say that according to all those media freedom ranking lists, Estonia ranks on the top of this list. And thanks to free media, we were able to deal also with the disinformation in our country. So it sounds pretty simple, and it is simple, just to keep media free.
Thank you. We have 5 minutes left for a final question. Do we have any? Okay, please.
Hello, my name is Jessica Wu. I am with Radio Taiwan International. My question is, do you think as a member of the European Parliament that you should pursue a bilateral investment agreement with Taiwan? Thank you very much.
As I said, I would like to work to deepen the relations between my country and Taiwan, between the European Union and Taiwan. So the European Union is already quite a big investor in Taiwan. So every method which will help to deepen those relations, to improve bilateral relations will be good. So I'm in favor for that kind of measure.
Okay, due to the time limit, ladies and gentlemen, please once again give a big round of applause to our speaker, former Prime Minister Ansip. 谢谢. Thank you very much, and also thank our host, Deputy Minister Lee, for the introduction. Thank you.